Eurovision Song Contest. In Husavik, Iceland, 1974, young Lars Eriksson is sad about the recent passing of his mother. His family gathers to watch the Eurovision Song Contest, and when Lars begins dancing to Waterloo along with his friend Sigrid, but his father Eric, Pierce Brosnan, shames him for being silly. He then yells at everyone that someday he will win the Eurovision Song Contest. In present day, Lars and Sigrid, Rachel McAdams, have a band called Fire Saga. They sing a song called Volcano Man, imagining an incredible music video, but in reality, they are in the basement of Eric's house, who comes down to yell at them to keep quiet. Later, Sigrid's mother questions her spending time with Lars, but Sigrid says that Lars is the one who taught her how to sing. Her mother tells her she will never find the Spierg note singing with Lars. Meanwhile, Eric tells Lars to move on from his childish dreams and that he needs to move out. At a local performance, Lars wants to play something new and different, but the angry crowd insists he plays Jaja Ding Dong, frustrating Lars. Sigrid tells Lars she went to ask the elves for help, an old Icelandic superstition. Lars doesn't believe in that, but Sigrid insists it's what they need. Meanwhile, Niels Bronkus, Olafur Darrialafsson, plays a video of Katiana Demi Lovato, an incredible singer with an entry for the Eurovision contest. Niels believes Katiana could be the first Icelandic winner. Another member of the council, Victor, protests that if they win, they have to host next year, which they can't afford. Niels believes in Katiana regardless. The council needs to pick 12 acts total for Sångvakeppnin to compete for the Eurovision slot and randomly picks Fire Saga as one of the other 11. Lars is so excited he rings the emergency bell, leading to his arrest. Sigrid bails him out, then goes to leave gifts for the elves. She thanks them for getting into the competition and asks them to help get them into Eurovision, since it's Lars' true dream, and if it came true, she and Lars could finally be together. After saying goodbye to their drummer, a small child, and head for Sångvakeppnin. At Sångvakeppnin, Lars imagines Eric telling him he's going to look ridiculous and everyone will laugh at him. In real life, Eric is at the bar with everyone, and the contest is on TV, but he doesn't even want to watch the competition. Eric goes outside right before he's supposed to go on, but gets locked out. Sigrid is forced to go onstage and begins singing Double Trouble alone as Lars runs through the auditorium, getting onstage halfway through. They put on wings and are hoisted into the air, but Lars becomes unclipped and falls, to the laughter of the crowd. Lars sobs on a bench, saying he has ruined everything for them. He asks why she stays by his side, and she tells him it's because he's a dreamer. They've missed the big boat party for all the acts. They finally lean in to kiss when the boat containing all the other acts explodes. They're horrified but also excited because they realize they are now the only entry for Eurovision. The council reluctantly agrees to let Fire Saga compete, and they go to Scotland for Eurovision. While touring Scotland, they lean in to kiss again, but Lars backs down, saying they must focus on the music. At rehearsals, they see Alexander Lemtov, Dan Stevens, the flirty Russian competitor singing Lion of Love. When Fire Saga goes to rehearse, Sigrid is surprised by all the effects and dancers Lars and the Iceland team have prepared. The choreographer is very harsh on Sigrid for not knowing any dancing. Meanwhile, the council is disappointed by Fire Saga's performance, except Victor. When they go to record the song, Sigrid finds the new version of the track too overproduced by the new producer Lars has hired. Alexander arrives and invites them to a party. At the party, Alexander introduces them to Mita Xenakis, Melisanthi Mahit, from Greece, who spends time with Lars, while Alexander takes Sigrid around his mansion. Alexander hits on Sigrid, telling her that she needs to sing from her soul, just like her mother told her. Then a songalong starts in the party, where lots of contestants sing a medley of songs. Afterwards, Mita hits on Lars. Alexander tells Sigrid she almost hit the sifts note. Lars turns Mita down and says he has more work to do on his song, but tells Sigrid to go out dancing at the club with everyone else. Later, Mita comes to Lars' room and sleeps with him. Sigrid wakes up hungover at Alexander's, though nothing happened between the two of them. He tells her she was singing a song in her sleep. He tells her he feels romantically toward her and wants to sing with her, but she says she has feelings for Lars. He reminds her that Lars is only focused on the competition and she's been waiting for him. Sigrid goes back to Lars' room and finds him in bed with Mita. She storms out. Then, at rehearsal, Sigrid furiously tears up the outrageous costume Lars made for her. They fight about their relationship and the new version of the song, and Sigrid walks out. Lars goes to a fountain and talks to his reflection, then yells at some Americans while Sigrid practices a new song. Later, the burning ghost of Katiana appears to Lars and tells him he is in danger. Mita comes to see Sigrid and tells her that Lars and her didn't actually have sex and that she and Lars have something special. At the semi-finals, Lars and Sigrid make up in the dressing room. He tells her he's going back to the original song. Alexander sees this and is disappointed but determined to have Sigrid. Back in Iceland, the locals watch as Fire Saga performs. The commentators, council, and Iceland locals are all surprised as Fire Saga does a great job until Sigrid's extra-long scarf Lars designed gets caught in the giant hamster wheel he is performing in, which then rolls off the stage, taking them both with it. They rush back on stage to finish, but are humiliated once again. Eric leaves the bar. Fire Saga leaves the stage, but then the crowd bursts into applause. Outside, Lars wants to leave, and Sigrid demands they go back in and do it for everyone who believes in them. She tells Lars they are more than the contest, and she says she has never asked him for anything and asks him to do this one thing for her. He says he only wanted to win, and Sigrid says Alexander was right about him. He refuses to go back inside, and she tells him they are over. He tells her to play the love song she heard him writing for Alexander, and she tells him it was for him. He goes back in, alone, to hear the result of the votes. Alexander sits with Sigrid and holds her hand as the votes come in, and everyone is shocked as Iceland wins the evening. Sigrid goes back to the hotel room and finds Lars gone. Lars goes back to Iceland and begins working as a fisherman. He yells at Eric for always being disappointed in him, and Eric tells him that, after he saw his performance he understands him and is proud of him and tells him to go and be with Ingrid. Lars then finds out Iceland made the finals and rushes off to go back to Eurovision. Victor offers to give Lars a ride to the airport, and Lars makes him stop so he can ask the elves for help in fixing things with Sigrid. Victor then begins strangling Lars, saying that Iceland cannot afford to win and confessing to killing everyone on the boat. Suddenly, Victor keels over, a tiny elf knife in his back. Lars looks back and sees the elf's door shut and thanks them. Lars gets back to Scotland and the Americans he yelled at give him a ride to the contest. Sigrid watches Alexander sing his song at Kevin, the gay show producer, and afterward Sigrid asks if he's gay. He says that no one is gay in Russia due to Russia's homophobic laws, and Sigrid lets him be. Katiana appears one more time to Lars to warn him, and he explains to her that the situation is already over, and she leaves. Lars then attacks Alexander, who explains that he is no threat to him and that he should be with Sigrid. Sigrid begins singing Double Trouble alone, but Lars arrives and stops the song. He tells the audience that life is more than a competition and they don't need to sing a winning song, but instead a song from the heart. He plays Sigrid's song she wrote, knowing they will be disqualified, and she sings Husavik, a beautiful ballad about her home, which culminates in her hitting the speared note. The audience, including Eric and Sigrid's mother at home, love it. Lars finally kisses Sigrid as the crowd cheers. Offstage, Alexander is happy for them living their truth. Mita tells him he should be able to live his truth too and invites him to come to Greece to get away from Russia's homophobic rule. Sigrid and Lars return home to great fame and popularity. Months later, Eric marries Sigrid's mother and Lars and Sigrid have a baby together. They perform at their parents' wedding as the credits roll. In Iceland, Lars, Will Ferrell, dreams his whole life of winning Eurovision. He and his best friend Sigrid, Rachel McAdams, form a band called Fire Saga. Sigrid is in love with Lars, but he is so focused on winning Eurovision that he never really sees her. They get selected to compete for their country and lose, but when everyone else in the competition is on a boat that explodes, Fire Song becomes Iceland's entry. It turns out the other competitors were murdered by an Icelandic official named Victor trying to sabotage Iceland from winning Eurovision because he believes Iceland could not afford to host the competition next year. Fire Saga becomes successful in the semi-finals, but Sigrid and Lars have a falling out over Lars' obsession with winning. Victor tries to kill Lars, but he is saved by elves, and he returns to Eurovision, performing a new song that Sigrid wrote with her, which disqualifies them, but proves to Sigrid he doesn't just care about winning. They are disqualified, but become hugely successful. Months later, Sigrid and Lars have a baby together and perform at the wedding of Lars' father and Sigrid's mother.